Ray, perhaps we might start with you, just in the light of what you heard from Staj. What's your response to that?
Yeah, look, I think Staj is absolutely right. There is that critical gap in, in the age, sort of from 15 through to 20, and if you look at with the junior World Cups and the youth World Cups, so we're talking about under 17 and under 20 now. We've got 4 countries that are fairly heavily established in, as he said, not only Asian champions, but World Cup champions in Japan, in China, and in South Korea and North Korea. So for us, if you like, striving to try and be that 5th place team to try then to forge our way into a top 3 to make a World Cup is very, very difficult. And I think the point that he makes in terms of the NTC programs and what's happening around the rest of the country and trying to best prepare the players for when they come in for 4 weeks preparation to go away to a World Cup qualification, I think that the point that he makes is fairly sound in that we aren't challenging our players enough domestically around the country. We're not providing a challenging enough environment for them for training and for playing. And I think that's something that we can do in our own backyard to help best prepare these young players. Not only towards trying to get to a World Cup, but we're trying to give them the best possible experience and best possible opportunity to go on and be future Matildas and go on and play in our senior national team.
Your pathway has been very intriguing, and you're at the top of the tree now because you're in the national setup with the national team. But it's Queensland Youth Championships, ACTAS with the NTC, assistant coach and head coach of Canberra United in the W League, and of course, as I said, you're just back from your first national team coaching role with the under-17s. So your experience and during your time coaching, what improvements have you seen, or what's been the biggest development?
Staj touched on it as well in terms of the SAP, the evolution of players coming through the SAP program. So this year was probably, so if you're talking about the players that we had in our, in our under-16 championship team, you're talking about players who have come through the SAP programs for the first time. So they're sort of the first players who have been fully implemented into a SAP program within their member federations. And to say that the difference technically, was pleasing, was a great jump, is phenomenal. But when we're talking about that space, we're still talking about it in a very, very, an immature way compared to the likes of our Asian neighbours who are so much more technically proficient. So yes, the evolution of the SAP programs, you can actually see it on the ground. You can see the players coming through now. You can actually see that their development and their technical proficiency is much better, but it's just a start. There's still so far to go, and if we can continue to build on that, then athletically, physically, we know, winning mentality, we know that we've got all those things in abundance within our football players. But for me, technically, is still where the biggest gap is, and so I implore all those clubs out there who don't have SAP programs to please invest in that. That is the best. And I'm not talking about for players to just go on and play at national team, but that is their best foundations for being able to play the game, is to get those technical skills, up and running to the best that they can.
Well, let's hear from one of the players who's going through or has been through all of that. Annabelle Martin has just finished VCE. Yep. So we're talking someone that came from an exam, rushed over here to play in the derby not so long ago. So really at the coalface of what young players are going through. How do you feel your needs are serviced within the game?
Yeah, like you said, when we've just been away for China as well, as Staj was saying, I think we had that belief as well, but obviously we've still got stuff going on here like VCE studies. I think there's like 4 or 5 girls going through the same thing as me. So I think it's just our reality to do what we can with both.
How much did you really care about your exams?
A lot, yeah.
We'll go back to your parents, don't worry. Tell me though, with the way conditions and, well, particularly around the financial side have improved for female players, do you now see that as a viable career prospect?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's, right there, and it's just going to keep building from year to year. I think it's improved so much as well the past 12 months. It's really good to see.
Amy, compared to me, you are so very young still, but do you ever look at these youngsters who are just starting out and coming through and thinking, wow, if I could wind back the clock, what a great time to be, an up-and-coming footballer?
Yeah, definitely. Look, I think with the CBA negotiations and all the positive changes that have been made just throughout the 10 years of the W League, I think now for a 15-year-old or even for Annabelle, the future's exciting. There's a lot more opportunities, I think, not only on the field but off the field. And I think the game and the women's game is starting to get a lot more recognition. And I think the Matildas' form and the results that we're getting at a national level is actually opening up the public's eye and opening up more opportunities for everybody, which is great.
On a personal level, and I mean specific to you, what's the biggest change that you've experienced in the game?
I think for me, being at Melbourne City, it's just everything's taken so serious. We're treated as equal, and it's not even about the money, it's not the facilities, it's just the way that we've been given the opportunity to sort of better ourselves in a great environment. For me, that's the difference from when I first started playing W League or even at NTC level, when we were training on sort of paddock fields and scheduling and stuff was really interesting. My parents were my taxi service. So for me, now that I'm older, seeing the strain that I guess it caused my family as well, now that I think there's a lot more support around the game and there's a lot more networks and people that sort of understand it, for me that's the biggest change.
Jen, when Amy mentioned support, that's a big part of your role. How do you approach that, the supporting the younger players?
It's a very vital part to my job. So apart from, making sure they get to A to B and everything like that, it's about making sure that what I put in place, how I schedule, how I communicate with the girls is professional. So when they transition through from the junior Matildas to the young Matildas to the Matildas, we're following the same sort of strategies. I keep in touch with Vito, who's the team manager of the Matildas, all the time. And it's about the communication of the time of year. So when we were going through camps before going to the AFC, quite a lot of them had exams. Majority of them missed pretty much all of term 3. So it was scheduling in times for them to do schoolwork so they could keep up. FFA's just implemented a strategy around schooling to make sure that they've got somebody there that is, that's their job, to make sure that we're liaising with schools now. We're making sure that whatever we're doing, we're trying to align with what they have back at home. So when they do go back home after a camp, and if it's a disappointing return because they're not coming back to another one, they don't have that extra pressure of what they've missed. Or if they are going back to then prepare to come for another one, they know that it's already taken care of. They don't have to worry about the school. They can just focus on seeing their friends and family. So it's very vital.
Right, we heard from a couple of people after Helen's talk, very interested in the coaching side, and of course it's still a heavily male-dominated environment. As a female coach trying to break into those ranks, what would be your advice to other female coaches? I mean, you're obviously a talented player with yourself at Queensland Schoolgirls and so on, and then some would argue that perhaps being with Queensland Police is part of coaching training, maybe, but but what
just
would
give
your
me a
advice
taser.
be? Can you use tasers at training now?
Look, I think, first and foremost, I think I understand the real responsibility and the privilege that it is to actually coach players, and especially young players. I think, I'm acutely aware of the impact that you can actually have on their life, and I'm acutely aware of the impact that can have on the lives of players, positively and negatively. So, you know, first and foremost, it's got to be about the player, and it's player-centred. And I think we touched on, some of the people touched on some different aspects or some different thoughts about how they approach coaching women. And as a woman, I probably get that because I've been that player. I've been through those things. So as a woman, I have an inherent understanding of that. But essentially, in terms of coaching them, it's coaching them as footballers. But you're acutely aware of, some needs and some the well-being that, around the female athlete. So I think that for me is probably the biggest adjustment. It's certainly not about, you would coach them a completely different way, but it's about the delivery of the message. It's about understanding that, and it's the first question that I said to Kyra today was, Kyra, I saw it and I said, hey, how's school? It's the very first question I asked her, and it's something that I always talk to my players about. Every player is always sort of one illness or one injury away from a plan B. So school is very important. And
so just quietly, Kyra should be at school, correct?
She assures me that she's got her books ready to do her homework tonight after training, and Laura Spivanovic has kindly agreed to tutor her in anything that she's missing out on.
That's a good get-out-of-jail card. Nice one. Annabelle, talk to us about when you started. How old were you when you started playing football?
10, so I was a bit later than everyone else. I grew up playing every single sport there was. The Australian Open's on, I'm playing tennis, playing footy, cricket's on, yeah, everything.
So what made you decide to pick football?
All my brothers played footy and my dad, so I grew up playing that, and then Dad was like, maybe look for a sport that you could have a career in, and we had family friends in there, and so I made the transition to soccer and just fell in love with it.
And tell me, you've just heard what Ray's had to say about the role of a coach. How big a role did your first coaches, say at club level, at really junior level, how much influence did they have on your decision to want to play and enjoy playing?
Yeah, absolutely. I had a really good coach, my first coach, and I played with his son, and we just had such a good relationship that it was so enjoyable to go to training. You just wanted to train more and more. We were pestering him to have more trainings, and in the holidays, day trainings. So yeah, it's a big role to have.
Amy, what was your what was the story of how you started in football?
Well, funnily enough, I started playing AFL football first.
Ooh.
However, at the age of 12, I was told that I couldn't play anymore because I was female. So anyone that's heard my story, they know that was my turning point. I don't like being told no, and I'll find a way to do something if it's what I want to do. And so sport obviously plays a massive part in my life, and it's what I wanted to do sort of physically, but also as a career path as well. So once I was told no, I looked at my options, and I actually had a local primary school teacher get me involved in indoor soccer, futsal. So from there, my footballing journey began, and to this day, I will never regret choosing football because of the opportunities that it's given me. Being such an international sport, I've been able to travel the world. I've been able to attend college over in the States, and it's exposed me to so many different things that AFL football never would have. So by people telling me no, I found a better option for me.
They missed a trick, didn't they? Tell me, what advice would you give your 10-year-old self?
First and foremost, enjoy what you do and work hard.
So, Annabelle, back to you. I mean, I feel like you're still closer to that age, but what advice would you give your young self just starting out in football?
I think just to be a bit more grateful to my parents for driving me to Melbourne. 6-hour trip up and back, so I think that would probably be the main thing for me.
Jen, as the next player yourself, you?
Well, my pathway hasn't gone anywhere like these guys higher, but I think just being grateful for the coaches that volunteered their time, taking that opportunity to, when I am confused about what they're giving me or whatever feedback they're giving me, actually putting my hand up and saying, hey, I don't quite understand. And then, of course, parents as well. My parents used to, like, I don't think they were ever at home, really, because I was playing cricket, football, then I was playing tennis, then I was coaching on top of that and didn't get my licence until I was 21. So, sorry, Mum and Dad. But it's, you know, seizing opportunities as well is one of the main things that I wish I would have done more. You know, I'm very grateful for the opportunities that I have, but sometimes I sit there and I wonder if I had stood up at this time, if I had put my hand up earlier, would I have gotten there? But then I have to remind myself that what I'm achieving right now, I get to meet amazing people like Ray, and I get to meet amazing players all the time, and then just pass that information on to the people that I run into, like Debbie, Sam over here. We're going to do some soccer mums, and we're going to get, you know, more people involved in the game. So having that passion and that direction you want to go in is really vital, which is what you guys need to think about when you're tackling female football.
Folks, we are going to open the floor to questions. Please, again, just raise your... Oh, Heather Reid. Oh. Welcome, Heather.
Sorry.
Can I open my eyes yet?
I've been around too long, so it's okay. That's why they're giving me a bit of a hard time.
Oh, sorry, just to clarify, I actually really like Heather Reid.
I like you too, Steph. Look, my question to Alan Stadzik before was a bit of a Dorothy Dixer. And so I'm going to follow that up with a question to Razor, and I think you'll know where it's going to go. Players' pathway to success. We've seen a lot of change in the last 3 or 4 years, particularly through FFA and their player pathway. Alan mentioned that we used to have institutes and academies of sport looking after girls and women's football. We don't have that anymore. There's been a shift from national training centre environments that member federations used to run to putting emphasis on A-League clubs and academies to look after the development of players. I should say the development of male players, because the gap here is that those clubs and the federations no longer have a great sense of commitment and dedication to doing very much for the women, for the girls' teams, and that's what he was alluding to, I think. So we don't have very strong and consistent approaches across the country to the development of the elite female player from 12s through to 17 or 19. Ray, as the coach of the junior Matildas, you had a couple of training camps before you went off to Vietnam to play in the Asian competition. You had a couple of games. What would you like to see change in order to make the junior Matildas and then the youth Matildas much more successful in that Asian environment? Be honest.
Well, I think the first thing is, the honesty is, we went to Thailand, not Vietnam. So, sorry, right from the beginning, I'll just put it out there. Look, I think one of the things I was really proud of in the 4 years that I was in Canberra, Heather, as you know, was that ACTAS is the only CISAS network that does actually still provide direct pathway support to the female players, no male players, because under Australia's winning edge, the female footballers are the priority. So there is actually money targeted towards the female players that are in the underpinning programs, and I don't think it's any surprise. And there's like 10 athletes in and around Canberra and surrounding regions that are in the junior Matildas and the young Matildas squad. So that's something that I was very, very proud of in forging that, finding a way to keep that pathway open with the CISAS network to provide the sports science assistance, the nutrition assistance, the psychologist, sports psychology, personal development advisor. So those things I think are very, very crucial, and if they aren't being implemented through the CISAT network in the NTCs and in the member federations, then the member federations and or the clubs, the Hyundai League and the W League clubs working in collaboration, need to find a way to assist the development of those players. I think that they are some fundamental aspects of player development that we're probably missing out on. The players that we saw there last night had the opportunity to come through and get that additional those additional resources, because a coach can only do so many things with so much time and so much contact hours with the players. So yes, you are counsellor, yes, you are, psychologist, yes, you are all these things, but I think collaboration is the key. And if you only have so much contact hours with the players, you can only do so much yourself. So you need to work in partnership. So that's with the clubs, that's with the member federations, that's with the other peak bodies that have actually got some acute interest and obviously influence over the players. I think that is the key, is collaboration. It's not working in competition. They're not my players or your players, they're our players. They're players who are wanting to fulfil their potential, to represent their W League clubs and their countries on the world stage. And I think that is something that we need to do much better in this space, is work collaboratively together to give these players the best environment and opportunity to play to their potential.
Just raise your hand if you have a question for any of these four ladies.
Thank you. The young players, you both indicated you played multiple sports and got to a point where you needed to choose, or were forced to choose. I was just wondering, Ray, if you can give us some insight into how you assist and support elite athletes across multiple sports to make those decisions.
Yeah, I did it myself as a young footballer. I was playing cricket, softball, at state levels and stuff as well. So, and the research in the last few years is provides a fairly distinct outcome that actually can benefit players. The early specialisation of players is probably detrimental to them being able to seek their potential. I can give probably the most recent example would be the inaugural AFLW competition last year, and I think I was a bit of a minority in terms of I actually worked in collaboration with two of my players at Canberra United that wanted to be dual code athletes. So I had two players that played in the inaugural AFLW season. One, Jenna McCormack, who went on to win the flag with Adelaide Crows, and the other one was Ellie Brush, foundation player, 100 caps for Canberra United. So I worked in collaboration with their AFL clubs. I provided those clubs and the coaches data, the direct data of what we were doing at our training sessions. So I gave them an assurance that those players would be fit by the time the AFLW season came around. And the main reason for doing that was that I wanted to support those female athletes to be professional athletes for longer than the duration of the W League season. And if that could enable them to earn their earning capacity to be greater because they could get that from two different sports, then that's a win-win for me. Male athletes have been celebrated for decades for being able to play, cricket in the summer and footy in the winter, and I felt like, especially as a female coach, I'll be very hypocritical if I was to stop those players from having that opportunity. And as I said, environment and opportunity is everything, and the collaboration between myself and the two clubs, the GWS and Adelaide Crows, just enabled that to happen.
Annabelle, you and Amy both spoke about playing multiple sports. Sorry, do you have a question, sir? Yep. Yeah. No, we'll come to you. Just in the meantime, can you explain to us, if we were to secure and be successful in our bid to host the Women's World Cup in 2023, you would be at or near your peak. How much of a part does that play do you think, in getting women into the game and staying in the game and wanting to achieve that level?
Yeah, absolutely. As Amy spoke before, football just gives you that opportunity to go overseas, to play against other countries, to experience the world. So I think that's probably the major thing that probably AFL doesn't offer again. So I think that's just something to aspire to. I know during the 2006 Men's Germany World Cup, I was playing at school every day at lunchtime with my friends who didn't even play soccer or anything like that. But just because it was on TV, it was getting publicised, it just made me want to play as well. So I think it'll do wonders.
Yeah, quick question for Amy. How important was the college education, or the chance to go to college in the States for your development as a player?
Look, at the time I was playing football and I was at university here in Melbourne, and so I actually transferred over. So I ended up playing overseas for 3 years and graduated with a degree from Florida International University. And for me, it was the best 3 years of my life. we talk about the opportunities that Melbourne City provide athletes and the facilities and everything. Unfortunately, it's already established in the States where we're playing catch-up. And so I feel as though being exposed to that quite early on in my career was sort of the eye-opener in terms of, okay, I want to play football, but there are so many other things in life as well. And it allowed me to travel. It allowed me to start my education journey, as you'd like to call it. And yeah, for me, it was vital, not only for my development in football, but as a person. And I look back and reflect on that, and it's, yeah, probably the greatest thing that football has provided me is that education, is one of those degrees. It was, yeah, fully funded. I was treated exceptionally well, and playing for my college and representing my college meant a lot to me because of what they were providing for me and what they were doing for me. So the support networks that the college offered me was something that I'm forever grateful for.
See, Kyra, that's why you need to stay at school. Just on that, Ray, I had an interesting conversation with Tom Samani, of course, one of the previous coaches of the Westfield Matildas, who's now coaching Orlando Pride, the women's team in the NWSL. And he said at the time, this was a few years ago, we were talking about this, he intimated to me that Australia would have trouble catching up just purely because of that college system and the way that the US can get so many women into football. Do you agree that to become the top of the tree, we really need to work that system out better here?
Absolutely. I think, it's an aspirational, position. So, as Amy said, I mean, smart cookie here, four degrees and counting. Like, so, the opportunity...
It's just showing off, really, isn't
it? And when she's only 21, it makes it hard, But seriously, but I like, the analogy there in terms of, the monetary value. So, if you're talking about $200,000 scholarships, and if you can actually do that, as a player, you'd like to think, depending on how long your playing career is, but could you earn $200,000 out of your playing career? So if you weigh it up like that, it does put things into perspective. I think that Amy touched on the other, real passion of mine in terms of, looking after the whole athlete and, the well-being of athletes, and the opportunity not to just put all your eggs in that one basket, and not to have that, that identity around just being a professional footballer. Like, it is an aspect of your life, but the whole athlete and the whole person is more important. And, once again, studies show that if you can actually not burn yourself out by solely focusing on being just this, you'll actually have more longevity in the sport, which means, your earning capacity now is going to be longer anyway. So, so the whole athlete, I think, is something that they probably do very, very well, and there's certainly some great lessons for us to learn.
Indeed. Any more questions for these ladies? If not, I just want to close by asking all of you, perhaps both players pointed to the fact that it's not just about playing football and success, it's about enjoying it and having fun, and that's what drew you to the sport in the first place. If you could give one piece of advice to the clubs out here in Victoria, what would it be? What can they do better, or what are they doing so well that they should keep up for their young women?
I think, just making it a really enjoyable environment for all the girls that are there, and if they need to mix with the boys, then do that. Just having that flexibility that we talked about before, just having that instilled in each club to make them want to train, want to be there and enjoy it, because that's what it's all about.
For me, it's recognising the individual. I think everybody has got different aspirations, why they're playing. They've got different things going on outside of life. There's study, there's work. I think an organisation or a club needs to be aware of what each individual athlete is actually experiencing, and then putting in personal, individual plans in place to get the best out of each person.
Mine would be empowering those volunteers or your staff, your team staff, to make sure that they know what opportunities there are for them to help improve their skills. Behind every great team, there's another team that is actually making sure that they're fulfilling the targets and giving them that empowerment. So there's a number of different programs that I know Helen will have a mentor program. There's those sorts of things that you can implement at your club now that can create that culture that can really empower then your players to become better. Whether it's to become a Matilda, a young Matilda, a W League player, or to go overseas to become to do a scholarship program in America, or whether it's to be just, kick around the park with their friends. Everyone's going to have a different journey, and you've just got to make sure that whatever you put in place can suit those individuals at your club.
Yeah, for me, I really like to draw back to an Audrey Hepburn quote where, the definition, don't say it's impossible to do that, because the definition or the actual word impossible is I'm possible. And so for you to actually assess if the player comes to you and has an aspiration that they want to go on and do something, and to say you can't, or you can't do this, or it's not possible to do this, that to find a way to keep working collaboratively with everyone within your network to find a way, because as I said, the definition or the words itself is I'm possible.
So Audrey Hepburn, wow. So many levels. Onion-like. We do have one more question here.
Hi, my question is, I have an under-12 player and her ambition is to play for the Matildas. So can you tell me what is the perfect pathway for her? So a community club based at the moment. What should her pathway be?
Go Ray. Yeah, so I'll actually just say that there is no perfect pathway. There is no defined pathway. Like youth athlete development is a non-linear process. It's like this. There's no defined pathway. Players can come outside defined pathways at any time, and if that player has the enjoyment and is challenged in an football environment to continue to be the best that they can be, then and if they're prepared to work hard enough, then they can find a way there. So don't be bombarded with this or that. It's got to be up to the individual player, as Amy said.
And hey, the junior Matildas coach, so I think you've got an inside running. Folks, we are going to have to leave it there, but we've been so lucky to have these wonderful women with us today. All the best for what's on the horizon for the junior Matildas. For Amy and Annabelle, good luck with the rest of the W League season, and of course all your other ventures, and Fifth Degree perhaps, Amy, why not? And we look forward to seeing all of you in action over the coming years. So would you please thank Ray Dower, Jen Willmott, Amy Jackson and Annabelle Martin. Thanks, ladies.